So the magnum opus Christopher Nolan movie Oppenheimer is going to release in the theaters this weekend, and I am just pumped to see this movie. This movie stars Cillian Murphy and then Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, etc. and etc. And of course Robert Downey Jr., who's obviously my favorite. I'm going to watch this movie especially for him and Cillian Murphy. Now, moving on, what I'm actually pumped for this movie. We as the Chris Nolan fans are absolutely expecting each of his movie to just amp the level of his filmmaking. But here are my top 5 Chris Nolan movies which actually made me a fan of his filmmaking, or basically my favorite director of all time. So, hello, my name is Prithvi, welcome to Movie Fluid, and here are my top 5 movies of Christopher Nolan which you should absolutely not miss. Coming to number 5, it's The Batman Begins.
You know, you can't say most about superhero movies, even the good ones, that they would work if people didn't walk into the theater knowing that they're, well, basically the superhero movies. Whether it's Iron Man, Superman, or Venom, the whole superhero-ness dominates the enterprise from the jump. The superhero makes the movie. Without a superhero, the movie basically evaporates. Among the many brilliant aspects of Batman Begins, a film that almost has its power and influence till today, 16 years after it came out, it basically somewhat feels like underappreciated. One of the most lasting ones is how it absolutely works as a movie, even if it's not about Batman. Christopher Nolan often gets criticized for making the whole superhero genre too gritty or realistic, but all that was born for out of a very basic decision with Batman Begins. This was going to be a real movie about real people that works as a thriller, an action movie, and a character study. It just turns out that at the end of this particular movie, the main character turns into Batman. It's just an origin movie that doesn't feel like an original movie, just like a movie, but a great one. But why was it a big deal at that time? Here's a factoid. Now, the time span between now and when The Dark Knight Rises came out is longer than a decade than it was between The Batman Begins and the infamous disaster that was Batman and the Robin. Jesus Christ, I don't want to talk about it again.
Coming to number 4, it's The Dunkirk.
Now, well, you might be surprised that why should I keep Dunkirk as my top 5 Nolan list. Now let's talk about it. Almost as associated with Nolan as this time-bending obsessions, Dunkirk also provides the director for the perfect opportunity to indulge in his unwavering desire to use as many practical effects as possible. In the past, his commitment to practicality has included dropping an actual plane out of the sky for the opening scene for The Dark Knight Rises and creating a completely rotating set for the hallway fight in the Inception. For his war movie, Nolan and his visual effects team used 3 original Spitfires alongside 1/4 of the models of the planes to bring his immersive dogfights to fruition. For the sinking ships of the movie, one of which was a destroyer, the team used half-scale ships and full sections of larger ships to stimulate the capsizing. He is a goat, come on. And all of the explosions of the ships were actually practical. The lengths Nolan and his team are willing to go on an ensure immersive experience were absolutely for the audience and are basically incomprehensible. Now, Nolan's love affair with the practical effects reached its apotheosis in Dunkirk and allowed the film to be a truly transporting experience.
Coming to number 3, it's Memento.
Now, this is another crazy one. You might be thinking why I actually kept Memento as number 3. Now, let's talk about this. This story basically follows a man who has a condition of a short-term memory loss and how he goes about finding who is responsible for it. The speciality of Memento is the film direction. One part of the story is presented backwards. Now, simple. The lead character is suffering from the short-term memory loss. By presenting Memento out of the sequence, the audience is also left as dazed and confused as the lead character. Now the audience too has no clue what happened to the moments before. This kind of basically non-linear film execution has come out to be the best Nolan time movie. While the awesomeness of Memento's plot is just innovative non-linear storytelling. I'm going to walk through the plot somewhere later during the time when no movie releases. Okay, now
Coming to number 2, it's Prestige.
Now obviously coming to number 2, it will be The Prestige. The Prestige uses magic to tell a very human cautionary tale about how The only thing that corrupts more than power is the pride, and it basically fuels man's efforts to attain it. The prideful men at the center of the Christopher Nolan's underrated 2006 masterpiece are two rival London magicians whose respective obsessions with the illusionist tradecraft consume their lives both off and on stage. Now, basically, Robert Anger, played by Hugh Jackman, is a charming and kind magician, unaware of how total his want, the best he wants in the ways to make his likable life. It's basically a lot of chaos. Now, Alfred, played by Christian Bale, sounds irony, right? Now, who is basically less interested in the fame and prestige that comes with the 19th century magic, acts more concerned and making his mark in the way that he gets his wife and daughter support. I hope I shouldn't spoil much about this movie. Just go and watch it. This is also one of the best Christopher Nolan movies you can ever see.
And coming to number one, which basically no one would expect, it's the Inception.
Okay, now you might be thinking, why is Christopher Nolan's Inception? I mean, not only mine, if it's like most of the people in the world, or you can say the whole China population. I'm just kidding. Now, why is Inception at the top of the list? Let's talk about it. So, Inception made an enormous impact when it hit the theaters 12 years ago. Christopher Nolan was coming off the game-changing success with the Batman in the Dark Knight and was given carte blanche by Warner Bros. To make an epic and enormously science fiction thriller. Now, an original story that wasn't adapted from any known intellectual property, a headed adult targeted narrative that was dense with symbolism, artful filmmaking, and complicated writing. Now, somehow it managed to be nearly as gargantuan box office, but it was really a critical winner and it won my heart. Now, basically, after a decade, if you just are going to ask me how was it, it's time to look back to Inception, and I would think that it should really make a landmark in the cinema way before it was released in the theaters. Now, if we look Inception from a surface level, there are already a number of factors that paint this as a stunning accomplishment. The cast alone is an ensemble of a top tier talent. What's more impressive than how ensemble this cast is? Led by Leonardo DiCaprio, has to be craftfully formed characters while also being vehicles for an overwhelming amount of exposition and world building.
Okay, if you really like this video, I would tell you to
Like, share and subscribe.
Okay, if you have heard that secret, please do like, share and subscribe, and hell yeah, cheers.